Toronto, go to bed. Manitoba, Manitoba, grown ass Manitoba, 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 grown ass Manitoba.
Coming to you in experimentally immersive lo-fi, it's Loathsome Things, a horror movie podcast covering the, quote, feature film debut of Canadian YouTube sensation, Kyle Edward Ball. I am the subject of my own dreams, Josh, and with me as ever is the subject of his own dreams, John. John, why hasn't anyone come yet?
We're gonna have to get into that, sort of.
Yeah,
because they kind of came,
right?
For a movie that has 3 things happen in it, it really doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yes, yeah. But before we get to that, John, in all actuality, how are you?
I am doing well. Doing well. Can't complain. Been working like crazy on this novel that I'm trying to write. I decided at 50,000 words that I wanted to change the tense, so I changed it to third-person past tense, which was much more in line with the way the story was going.
Oh, okay. Is it all from the same point of view, or does the point of view move around?
It's more of that kind of omnipotent, like all-seeing point of view, so that originally it was going to be from what I kind of considered the main character, but I didn't like I just didn't like it. It was limiting in a lot of the things that I wanted to say, because it grounded me in his reality all the time. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted it to be more, it gives me an opportunity to like blather more about stuff, because it's not coming from his point of view. And then I also, because I was making a lot of it up as I was going along, pantsing it, I had to go back in. I've been going back in and kind of rewriting dialogue and making it more natural and putting in a lot more of like the kind of stuff I say, like a million fucks and all that kind of stuff. Like, one character was going to be cool, and then I realized he was boring, so now he's a raging asshole. It's just typical writer-y stuff.
Yeah, that's
How about
awesome.
yourself? Yeah, thank you. How about yourself?
Oh, I have been, experiencing depression. It's the kind of thing you do. This is quite a movie to watch over and over again while experiencing depression.
Jeez.
What a great choice. But it's been good. I can feel myself coming out of it. I'm feeling a little bit more chemically balanced, and I'm excited for the soon-to-be past tense Super Bowl that will take place after we record this, but well before anyone else listens to it.
Yeah, I couldn't care less about the Super Bowl. I've watched it. I watched it every year for most of my aware life, and then suddenly just was like, you know what? I don't give a shit about football anymore.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I like watch most of the time I can't really watch sports. It's like, this game doesn't matter. But whenever it gets to championships, it's where whatever the format has basically decided that these are the best teams, these are the athletes playing at the peak of this game's potential, then I'm interested. That's why I watch the World Cup, I watch the World Series if the Astros are in it. And because of that team from some town outside of where I live, and here, you've got the things. I've been watching the playoffs the whole time, and just because of what streaming services I have available to me, I ended up watching the Bengals play 3 games, and I have no preference for the Bengals, but I did learn this year that I hate Joe Burrow, the quarterback of the Bengals, and that guy can go swallow every cigar in the store.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I know nothing about Joe Burrow. But I'm sure you're right.
Oh yeah, he's the kind of guy where his dad has always paid his way to places. He seems like the kind of guy that hasn't personally killed a stripper, but he's helped his friend bury one, probably.
He's definitely done blow out of her ass crack.
Yeah. He's a little bit too milquetoast to actually do the crime.
Oh, right.
But also his dad is too rich for him to actually have to do the time.
God, the NFL just cannot get away from the pretty boy quarterback types.
Oh yeah,
the Chads.
Yes. Yeah, and this last game was Joe Burrow, who is a total little baby face boy, versus Pat Mahomes, a pretty little baby face boy. So Melanie and I called it the Battle of the Baby Faces. It was delightful.
Nice.
So yeah, that's what's been going on. John, for your writing project, do you have like a code name that you call it by that won't end up being the finished title?
Our Own Demons.
Ooh.
Yeah. That's the second one. The first one wrote itself right out of the story, so...
Yeah. I was calling it First Person Limited.
It's like the original idea that got me going on the novel to begin with is completely written out of the story.
Nice.
Because it was, quite lame.
Yeah. Isn't writing a hell of a thing like that? Like, you go in there, you've got this kernel of inspiration that you're all excited about, and then by the time you actually are writing the thing, that is gone, and you hate it.
Yeah, I've learned a lot about my writing. I knew that I wrote really fast, and when I feel inspired, I can, crank out, 10,000 words just like that. But then what I definitely learned was that I suck when it comes to the mechanics of the amount of mistakes that I make, not like misspellings and shit like that, but just, using the same phrase twice in two sentences, or, just the kinds of things. And it makes me wonder, do I speak that way? And I mean, just all the errors that you just go back and read, and it's like, wow, did a 5-year-old write this?
Yes. Yeah, you have to have an editor. I do the same thing where I'll be like, I'll end up putting the same word at the beginning of the sentence, and then I'll use it again at the end of the sentence. In both instances, I'm like, wow, this is the best word right here. But then reading it, I'm like, wow, what an asshole.
It's like the reason you're so excited about it is because you forgot that you just used it, and it worked so well the first time.
Yeah. And I do speak like that too. I know there's at least one episode out there of this show where I said bonkers just over and over again, and then another episode where I couldn't stop saying lunacy and lunatic.
Wow, that's bonkers.
What a lunatic.
Yeah, I use the word really a lot when I write.
Yes. Yeah.
And every time...
Gotta...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, and then when I go back and look at all the adverbs, I'm just like, take that out, take that out, take that out, take that out. All those adverbs can just go suck eggs.
Yep. I'm exceptionally guilty of just throwing adjectives all over the place. Like, ooh, that doesn't hit hard enough. What if it was wonderfully dramatic?
It's so bad. But I'll get there. I mean, I know what something is supposed to read like in my mind, or at least the way I envision it. So, and I'm super, super meticulous and anal about, I wouldn't even dream of submitting it until I read over it 5,000 times out loud, half asleep, like in every state I can imagine, that kind of thing.
You can even get some alpha readers. Alpha readers are a great thing to do. That's what Patrick Rothfuss does. He just won't fucking publish a book. They're like, oh yeah, 15 years later, still haven't published the book.
Permanent editing.
Yeah. Like, what was it? Go Set a Watchman. Just publish a book, get really famous, never publish a book again until you die.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Hey, I can do that. Well, except for the publishing, the first book part.
Right. John, do you find yourself when you're writing, like after a certain point in the process, do you find yourself like having gotten into a groove where you realize that you're just writing the same thing over and over again? Like, you've written a thing, and then you're like, all right, I've got this entirely other idea, and then you start writing that idea, and then you realize it's the same idea?
Yeah, I will anticipate, like, I'll go back and edit a section and anticipate something that I'm a sentence that I'm about to write a paragraph later. I'll write that sentence again, almost verbatim, and then go back over and read it, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, like 5 sentences later, I put that exact same sentence.
Nice.
It's weird how that stuff happens, yeah.
Well, the reason I ask, John, is related to the movie that we are reviewing today. It is, so on Kyle Edward Ball's YouTube, Bite-Sized Nightmares, at Bite-Sized Nightmares, he had, his first one was called Nightmare 1. And if you watch that, it's basically a short version of this movie. Mm-hmm. And then he said, this is based on a nightmare I had as a kid that stuck with me for my whole life. Invited people to share their nightmares with him, and he would try to capture them in short film manner. And after making nightmare videos in his own style, he noted, it's strange that everyone seems to have the same nightmares as me. It's like, okay, I think you might have cause and effect wrong there. So then he made a short film called Heck, 29 minutes, whereas Nightmare 1 was about 4 minutes. And then Heck is basically a 29-minute longification of Nightmare 1, which shared a lot of similarities to it. And then Heck got elongified and turned into Skinamarink, which is the movie that we see now, which is exactly like Nightmare 1 and exactly like Heck, with some surprisingly storyline differences, but other than that, they are like visually just different qualities of the same thing. And it really feels like he's in that thing where he keeps making the same thing over and over again, which I totally get. I think it's just interesting to be able to see 3 different variations of the same thing play out. I think this one's successful, but there are some things that were in Heck that were interesting. Like, for example, it's just the little boy and his mom. Mm-hmm. And the little boy, at one point, whenever he's trying to convince his mom to, like, come back to him or whatever, apologizes for getting cancer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I didn't know if have you watched any of his other stuff?
I have not. No.
Okay. Yeah.
I knew about it, but I just had I need to go watch that shit.
Yeah. It's good, but you could definitely see that like this experimental film isn't his only experiment. This is just his longest experiment. But I will say it's successful.
That's really cool. Yeah, no, I think he pulled it off. It's I mean, it is quite an accomplishment, this movie. I mean, because it really is an experimental film, and but it's so, I don't know what I want to say, that it touches on archetypes that are so common that, you know, even in its bizarre state, people are kind of getting it more than you would expect. I'm sure there's, I mean, obviously the Reddit edgelords are, fuck this movie, you know, but beyond that, like back on planet Earth, people actually, you know, are getting it, which is interesting.
Yeah. It's a whole thing. I would recommend listeners to watch it. It's an especially good movie to watch by yourself, which isn't usually the case with horror movies, but this is one where it's really kind of a personal experience. I could imagine nothing ruining this movie more than watching it with someone that doesn't get it and doesn't think it's good and heckles the decision and gets bored. For example, me, like I haven't personally experienced any of these dreams, so at times it was just a little bit boring. Yeah. But I get the artistry from it. I get the inspiration. It's cool, but I'll tell you, watching this movie multiple times was a bit of a chore.
It is difficult watching it multiple times. I kind of had the same reaction. I mean, the first time I watched it by myself with headphones. Well, that's the only way I've watched it, but that was the first time I watched it. I did it that way, and which I think is really the best way to watch the film. But I mean, having said that, it's like, I've got to imagine. Like, if it didn't appeal to you at all, it would just be interminable. And even And the other thing is, the second time you watch it, and every successive time you watch it, the thrill is gone. It's not scary at all. At all. Like, all the tension that is built in this film is built around not knowing what's going to happen. So when you know what's going to happen, there's no tension. It's just weird, you know?
Yeah.
Which is cool. I like weird, but it's not scary anymore.
Yeah. Once you know the thing, then it's just like, oh, okay, well, and here's gonna be a jump scare, so I'm going to move my headphones away from my head, because I don't need that in my life. Yeah. All right, thank you.
That's right. No shit. But, you know, my hat's off to Kyle Edwards Balls. I think he did,
yes.
A great job, and it'd be interesting to see what he comes up with next. Because this is one of those things where, you know, he can't possibly do it again. I mean, he can, but nobody's going to watch it. He's going to have to come up with something completely different. And he could be a one-trick pony kind of guy where, hey, I blew my load on Shrink-a-Dink, and now I'm good.
That never happens with found footage style experimental cinema.
No, not at all.
All of those Blair Witch Project people went on to have really memorable careers. Yeah, remember that movie that I don't remember anything else they did. No. Yeah. Then again, you know, this is kind of in the, like, creepypasta oeuvre of film, and so, you know, it's going to be iterative. There's going to be other directors that come along and do other things like this. And I mean, I would imagine, this is purely preposterous because I can't know this, but I'd imagine Kyle Edward Ball will probably get kind of forgotten, whereas Skinamarink itself will get remembered, kind of like those guys from, you know, Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, I think,
who I do not know who they are.
Javier Bardem and Tony Danza, yes. I think is what it was.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah, I think
in a dance movie.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, I think you're right. I just wanted to add real quick that this was actually shot in Kyle Edward Balls' childhood home in, what was it, Edmonton, Alberta or something?
Yep. Or as Wikipedia calls it, Edmonton, Canada, because there's nothing between the city and the country in Canada.
He's from Canada.
Yes.
So the movie opens with a tremendous amount of hissing, which will carry on through 99.9% of the entire film. You don't even realize you hear it anymore until it's not happening. But imagine the sound of random hissing and TV-ish stuff. Okay, so anyways, so the movie opens, it's like hissy, and we've got a hallway. This is kind of setting up what we're going to see throughout the film. Weird camera angles, barely lit, strange noises, the kid's dicking around with his little tape recorder thing. We've got loud moments and really soft moments. There's the world's most ominous nightlight, which shows up many times throughout the film. One of the parents, I'm assuming it's the dad, because apparently that's his side of the bed, leaves the bed. And then the kid is, one of the kids is fucking around, and the dad asks him, Are you hiding? And then apparently Kevin, the boy, falls down the stairs while sleepwalking. And Dad very loudly storms out the door and takes the kid to the hospital. Then we get a bunch of slow panning on the camera. The TV turns itself on. The dad returns and phones someone to give them a boo-boo update for Kevin, which I assume was the mother, but it could be anybody or nobody.
Yeah.
Because none of this may be actually happening. Another kid who I don't even know which one it is hits the shitter. I don't know if it's Kevin or Kaylee, but they hit the shitter, and then they wander around in the hallway. There's no dad in the bedroom now. The one kid goes and gets the other kid. You pretty much, anytime you see them, you're pretty much seeing them from like the waist, not even the waist, like the hips down. You're seeing legs.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah, we're not getting any faces. Everything is either from the ground looking up at like the ceiling corner of the wall, or like looking down at the corner of a room where the carpet matches the drapes.
Yeah. You know how like when you're laying in bed and you're kind of just in that dazed state where you're not quite asleep and you're just staring at maybe a joint between two walls, and that's 99% of this movie.
Yep.
So anyways, the dad's not there, the kids are together. The doors and the windows in the house start vanishing in a extremely lo-fi technique. Cut shot. It's so weird. The kids hear the dad calling. What else? Let's see. Kids hear dad. Yeah. So anyways, there's the dad calls. There's no answer. What, is that what it is? The fuck am I thinking of? Is it where Kevin makes the phone call?
No, that comes way later.
Oh yeah, that comes way later. That's right. The kids hear the dad calling. They don't answer, and then the phone is now dead. Somebody tries to use the phone. It's dead. They're trying to whatever. And then the kids decide that they're going to sleep downstairs because they're creeped out. There's creepy shit going on upstairs. So they pop in the world's worst VHS tape of really old, free-to-use cartoons. Lights go out. They can't sleep. One of them can't sleep. And so they eat cereal. And then Kevin goes upstairs to, quote, get some stuff. And we see that the nightlight is unplugged. Kevin goes to his dad's room. Nobody there. He plugs the little nightlight back in the hallway. It switches itself off. Riveting stuff. Scariest movie ever made. Wow, it's really hard to talk about that. What happens in this movie.
Okay, and so that's where your part ends, right?
Yeah.
It's really hard to tell with this movie. So Kevin asks Kaylee, his sister is Kaylee, she's the older of the two. He asks her, why is mom crying? She doesn't respond, so he asks, how come no one's come yet? And she says she doesn't know. We hear scary noises, and then all of a sudden, one of the dining room chairs is now stuck to the ceiling in a moment that John foretold to me. He was like, you're gonna see some horror movie things that you recognize in here. I won't tell you what they are, but you'll know it when you see it. And then I saw that dining room chair on the ceiling, and I was like, oh, there it is. It's right there.
Yeah, the TV, it was so poltergeisty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, staticky and flickering. So seeing this, Kaylee says we should be quiet. Kevin says, where do you think Dad is? Kaylee says, I don't know. Kevin says, maybe he went with Mom. Kaylee says, I don't want to talk about Mom. We then see the toilet disappear to an eerie tone, which, for a movie that's all about being immersed in it, where you're like supposed to be like zoning in and like headphones on and like totally getting it, that stupid disappearing noise is so fucking silly.
It really is. It's just like it's like that kind. It's like that kind of a sound.
At this point, indistinct things on the wall, like there's a Barbie doll and some other stuff, spooks Kaylee while Kevin is away, and then Kevin walks up behind Kaylee and taps her on the shoulder. We guess, we don't see this happen, but it scares Kaylee into a jump scare for us, where we're just looking at something and we're hearing and then a jump scare scream of ah! and it's like, oh, good, thanks. I'm so glad I'm wearing headphones for this. At this point, we hear icky voices lure Kaylee upstairs. Then we see in the bed, her dad is there. He's like sitting up on the corner of the bed the way like a guy that's about to divorce his wife maybe would do in the middle of the night. I don't know. It's definitely not about anything like that. He tells Kaylee to look under the bed in the creepiest way possible. So she does that. She looks under the bed. We don't see anything. We can't even tell that she actually looked under the bed because it's just a night for night shot of a dark room. She looks back up and her dad is gone. But now her mom is there on the mom side of the bed. Her mom says, Kaylee, your father and me. This is cut off by an ominous sound. So she starts whispering, we love you and Kevin very much, Kaylee. I need you to close your eyes. And so then the camera goes completely blank, and whenever it comes back, both parents are gone, and yet we still hear Kaylee's mom. She says, there's someone here, go back downstairs, okay? And then we hear, like, bone crunching sounds, and an inhuman squeal, and like electronic noise tone jump scare. Thank you very much, Kyle. And then an icky voice calls Kaylee, and then our perspective switches from Kaylee to Kevin, who is also now calling Kaylee, and there is no response from her.
Yeah. Man, I'm shitting my pants at this point. And yeah, we get a lot of heavy breathing. And then Kevin goes to take a squeege, and then comes back, sleeps by the television. The Legos just seem to fall apart. I don't know if he's dicking with them or the thing is... I don't know what the fuck's going on. They're just Legos moving around on the floor. Great. And then they show up on the wall, and there's like Legos on the wall and a teddy bear and a VHS tape, and they're all just stuck to the wall, basically.
Yep.
That's okay. And then we hear that voice thing again calling Kevin to the basement. And the night light we see is now unplugged again. We get the muffled Kaylee voice, who's also calling out to Kevin. Kevin, I'm scared. I feel strange. I feel strange is a great thing. Like, I just love that line. Like, this little child who's been abducted by a demon or whatever is saying, I feel strange.
Yeah.
That was really weird. And then we get this weird, featureless Kaylee no-mouth jump scare thing. One of the few, like the only makeup effect, I guess, in the entire movie. Somebody freeze-framed that. This is great. I think it was... I can't remember who it was. It was somebody on Twitter, like a horror author or an artist or somebody, took a freeze frame of that shot and matched it up to a shot from Lake Mungo.
Ooh.
And basically was like, yeah, they just ripped this off. And I'm like, I mean, you are kind of, you do have a point. It pretty much looks exactly the same, but I don't think it was intentional. I mean,
yeah,
it's a night picture. It's washed out. You know, it's supposed to be. I don't know. Who cares? But anyway, so she's got the demon fake now. Don't know what that means, but that's fine. And then we get that moment. Kevin gets the fuck out of there, and then the wall Legos vanish. They're not there anymore. Kevin busts out some juice boxes, and here's that voice calling him again, Kevin.
Wow, you did that really well. That's awesome.
Sleep. And then we just hear thud. Kevin drops on the ground. We don't see it, we just hear it. The cartoons go fucking haywire. Stuffed animal vanishes. The cartoons come back. They're like back to semi-normal, whatever. Kevin wakes up, rocks his juice box again. I was going to say jukebox. Plays around with the Legos, and then we hear the demon, I want to play, a couple times.
Wow, damn, you do that really well.
And then we hear some more banging, some cartoon loops. The voice calls out to Kevin, "Put the knife in your eye."
Holy shit.
Pretty nice.
Dude, that's awesome.
So yeah, he I guess you hear the shk of a box cutter, and then some horrible screaming, and then silence, and then blood splatter on the wall. So I guess he stuck a box cutter in his fucking eye, which is pretty rough. And then the voice tells him to wake up. He wakes up. He's heavy breathing. The tunes are all jacked. More breathing. We get some ominous tone.
Yeah, I love that ominous tone showing up in the closed captions.
And then we see the back of, is it Kaylee's head, or is that the mom's head?
I really don't know. I think it's Kaylee's head, but it's hard to tell.
I thought it was Kaylee's head too, because it was up close, and it felt a little too intimate to be like the mother's head. Like, I don't know. It's hard to say, but anyways, it also probably doesn't matter. But and then we hear the off-hook tone, which is what I wrote, and was actually exactly the way that was put in the subtitles. It was like, oh yeah, off-hook tone. I guess that's what it is. Kevin dials 911, and they answer this time. The phone is now working because of the off-hook tone. And Kevin dials 911 and has this bizarre discussion with the 911 operator. Tells him, "I hurt myself and I feel sick." Then there's a bunch of 911-y questions. Pretty standard stuff, actually, as far as like the 911 operator is concerned. Like, are you're in the house by yourself and all this kind of stuff. That's when you find out that Kevin is 4 years old, which really does kind of ramp up the horror factor, because imagine being in that position as a 4-year-old.
Yep. Also, I've got to say, I kind of like this 911 dispatcher was like a very sympathetic character, because you like hear them asking these important questions. They're like, "All right, Kevin, I you're in the house by yourself. What's going on? And we'll send help. I just need you to stay on the line." Like they're really trying. Especially, I think you're gonna hit this upcoming line here.
Oh, the bit about the windows and doors being gone? Is that what or is it?
Yeah, the windows and doors being gone, and then it's like, "Now, Kevin, I hear that you're whispering. Is there a reason that you're whispering?" And whenever they asked that, I was like, damn, that person is like perceptive and like trying to make sure that they're helping this kid entirely. Like, way to go, 911 dispatcher.
It's funny because, we've watched so many horror movies that you're just expecting the 911 dispatcher to, like, "And Kevin, let me ask you this," or, like, I kept waiting for that to happen, but it never happened.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, such restraint. And then Kevin stops responding. The person's like, "Kevin, are you there? Kevin?" And then the phone just drops to the floor. Kevin is not there with the phone anymore.
Yeah. He's done with the phone.
Yeah.
That at this point, Kevin instead starts talking to the creepy voice, and he says, "You did that," and the creepy voice starts laughing in its creepiest way. It says, "I can do anything. Kaylee didn't do as she was told. She said she wanted her mom and dad, so I took her mouth away."
Pretty awesome.
Which is great. That's what we saw earlier with the makeup effect over her mouth. Very much Harlan Ellison's I have no mouth and I must scream. I was like, wow, that's pretty awesome. Not something that's new,
right,
but it's just, it was good. Well done. He tells Kevin to come upstairs. Kevin goes upstairs, and it says it'll protect him. And at this point, Kevin ends up on the ceiling. We're seeing everything upside down, including, like, on the floor is that stupid boob light that's in every shitty house. And it's on the floor now. And then it says, up on the screen, it says 572 2 days.
Yeah.
Which I was like, what the fuck is it talking about? But if you go back and you watch Heck and you watch First Nightmare, in all of them it counts how long this is taking. So like in one of them it talks about sleeps, like how many sleeps it's been. So this is supposed to be indicating to us that, plus the fact that earlier Kaylee was like, I think it's time to get up, that this isn't all taking place over the course of a single night. It's like a night that is unending or something, or at least that it's supposed to feel that way.
Yeah, some sort of temporal weirdness.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Kevin sees what looks like Kaylee across the room until she blurs slowly into nothingness. Then we see some kind of miniature house in a smoky fog distance lighting. It's a very interesting shot, but it just has no context, and I'm sure there are some art students that could say some things about it. But I'm not them. Then we see these creepy eyes peering at us from the darkness until it turns into that stupid face phone toy from the 70s or whatever. And then it does a jump scare. Thank you, Kyle. We see that the faces have disappeared from all the family photos. We're looking at all the family photos and it's all just blurry and nothing. There's a scene looking up at the ceiling corner where it meets the wall, but it's upside down, so the ceiling is actually the floor and it's carpeted. And we see a very low budget digital blood splatter and sequence of increasingly heavy blood splatters go across the carpeted floor ceiling and then disappear and then reappear and then disappear and then reappear and then disappear.
With lots of weird, artificially laid-in screams, sort of.
Yeah. And then we hear a distorted "Mommy!" And at this point, Kevin starts calling for Kaylee, and he asks, can we watch something happy? Then, similar to that weird house in the fog, we now see a door in a similar fog, and the door is, like, elongated and stretched out. And then it's just a dark screen with the VHS static. And then slowly that VHS static turns into a very blurry, almost two-dimensional face, where the only featureness of the face is the recesses around the eyes and shadows around the nose and mouth. Nothing to like grasp onto there. It tells Kevin to go to sleep, and Kevin asks, "What's your name? What's your name?" And then the face slowly recedes back into nothingness. The end.
Yeah, that happened.
Yeah. I know we're both being like, yeah, fuck you, but I mean, it's actually really good. It's a really interesting watch. It can be immersive. There are parts about it that I don't find effective, but it's a very cool experience.
It's the thing about this movie for me is the first time I watched it, I loved it. I mean, I just like the atmosphere worked for me, and I was, I mean, I like a lot of movies where nothing much happens, so I'm okay with that. That wasn't that new to me. And then I don't know, it just hit for me. And then every other time that I watched it after that, I just was like, I just don't give a shit anymore. Like it just yes. This is a one viewing only movie for me.
Yeah.
Then it's better to just think about it because watching it again, it just took all the magic out of it. I was just like, God, Jesus, how much longer do we have with this fuck? And I'm not usually like that with movies.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they're just terrible, and this is not terrible. It's a really cool movie, and I'm really glad I saw it once.
Yes. I think we've talked about it before. There's Douglas Gordon's art piece 24-Hour Psycho, where he plays the movie Psycho slowed down to the point that it takes 24 hours to watch it. this is kind of like that, where like I bet that's really cool to watch exactly one time, maybe not all in one sitting though.
Yeah.
But like it would be really cool to be in a room with that art exhibit, and this feels like it would be in a smaller room but in the same gallery.
Yeah, the thing about there's all kinds of things you can say about experimental art, but or particularly film. There's all kinds of ways to experiment, just like there's all kinds of ways to rip someone else off completely or whatever. But as far as like experimentation, I mean, you can experiment with a film and still make it incredibly engaging and exciting and fun. Just because it's experimental doesn't necessarily have to mean that it's slow paced or off-putting or whatever. But you can also make a very slow-paced film and have it be, pretty engaging. And I guess the first viewing for me more or less pulled that off. And like I said, after that, it just lost its luster for me. But I think that's just because I just knew, I knew it was going to happen, and I had already formed my opinion about what had happened. And there's nothing in there that rewards watching it again, because all that stuff that just seemed to kind of like it like took this dramatic distance between moments in the film. Those distances just become interminable, like just agonizing when you're watching it over and over again.
Yeah,
you're just like, I know what's going to happen. I don't need 9 shots of the Legos, and one Lego falls over, and then a side of a couch with a teddy bear arm hanging over it for 9 minutes, and then some kid's feet and then when he's walking you hear this. What the fuck is that sound? I know I sound like I'm slagging it. I guess I am slagging it, but I really did like it. It just doesn't reward multiple viewings for me at all.
Yeah, and I don't think it was intended for multiple viewings. So like in that way, where I'm trying to be very fair to Kyle, because it is very interesting, and he does some cool things. Like at first, I really hated the super long forever nothings between scary shots, but I get what he's doing as far as trying to do a dream immersion, because like I'm not the type of person that remembers my dreams. Most of the time I wake up and have no recollection of dreams. There are very few dreams that I actually remember, like over the course of years. Like I can go an entire year and not have ever woken up remembering a dream. But when I do, there are often these like weird transitional places between the memorable moments, and that's obviously what he's doing. He's putting this darkness and this uncertainty between these really, really concrete moments. And that's really interesting, and it is a very rewarding single viewing experience. Like I don't think he intended for 2 assholes to watch his movie 4 times and then rip it apart. I think he intended to give one really cool experience, and I think he did a good job of that. It's just some of it's just I don't know. Some of it's very silly, but the experimental camera work is really cool. I really like the times whenever like the darkness feels like it's bulging. Like he did some great stuff, and I mean, this dude did it without a Hollywood budget. This is like a $15,000 budget that he partially crowdsourced, and then I guess he just like did the rest of it himself or whatever, or maybe he had like a Canadian aunt with a bunch of extra loonies hanging around. She
sold her stuffed beaver and raised some scratch for Mr. Balls.
Old Scratch.
What was that movie with the stuffed beaver that we did? I don't know. I can't remember the name of it.
Fuck. It's in there. Go back and look at our 2021.
It was an hour long. The guy was like
Dementia Part 2.
Dementia Part 2. That's right.
Yeah. This time it's beavery.
That's correct.
Yeah. And there's some really, really cool stuff. Like one of the things that I like about this movie is the implication of what's happening, because we don't get any explanation of what's happening, but there's a lot of things in here that like strike chords of like abuse taking place in the home, or negligence, or it could also be like we know that Kevin fell down the stairs and hit his head and went to the hospital and came back. It could be that this is him on pain medicine experiencing all this, or even him on anesthesia, or a concussion. Like especially that last scene with the face telling him to go to sleep, that could just as easily be a demon making these horrible things happen as it is a nurse trying to get him to calm down in a hospital, or an abusive relative trying to, shut him up.
Yeah, like is he? Yeah, does the movie, once he falls, is it taking place in his imagination or in his mind, like he's in a coma or something, and he's personifying these fears that he has by turning them into something that's outside of him. There's all kinds of questions like that the movie raises, and I think does do a good job of that. I thought that was really kind of cool, because there's not a ton of plot points, but and I guess that is something that would reward maybe a couple viewings, unless you go read a bunch of reviews or something, and you kind of get an idea for the different ways that people are seeing it. But if you really wanted to try to interpret it for yourself, I guess maybe repeated viewings wouldn't be a bad idea, because things like some of the plot points do stand out more the more you watch it. I felt like the narrative made a lot more sense to me as I watched it over and over again. Unfortunately, I just it didn't have the same thrill, but it was, but like you're exactly right. I mean, this guy didn't make this movie with the intent to have, idiots make fun of it. He wanted people to watch it and, be scared, and it worked for me.
Yeah. I would definitely say, watching it the first time is great on your computer with your headphones on, but on consecutive ones, the temptation to just open up another window and do anything else while the movie is playing in the background is impossible. Like, you cannot.
Yeah, that's exactly why I wore headphones every time I watched it, because I knew I'd be on my phone, like, just fucking doodly-doo, and it may be slow paced and not a whole lot happens, but you still have to watch the fucking thing.
Yep. Yeah. And yeah, it's good. Another thing that I found particularly effective was Kaylee's unique creep factor. Like, we're mostly following Kevin here.
Yeah.
But there's a portion of it where we're following Kaylee around, and like there's that scene where Kevin asks about, like, do you think he went with Mom, and she doesn't want to talk about Mom. We're getting, it's part of that, like, implication of maybe there's, like, abuse or negligence here. The fact that she doesn't want to talk about Mom, and then that scene that she has that's in with her mother, we get kind of a feeling like, Kaylee, like, Kevin's 4, Kaylee's 6, but we're getting a feeling that she's more aware of the bad things that are going on than Kevin is, and then there gives some symbolism to her with her mouth covered up, that she literally can't tell him the things that she knows that are going on.
Right.
And it's really good. It's really effective. It's super creepy, and it adds to that, like, middle of the way, like, what the hell even is this? Like, so I mean, like, really, really good job, Kyle.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really glad that this movie exists. I mean, it's just another example of, kind of this running thread that we have about contemporary horror and where it's going. And, if we were talking about writing at the beginning, I've been following a lot of different writers and stuff on Twitter, and, in horror. And of course they have their own community. They have a very strong sense of community, which is cool, because other creative arts aren't necessarily like that from my experience. But So that's really cool. But I think the problem with that is it's great that everybody shares notes with everybody, and you know, they all talk technique and shop with each other all the time. But then you read their books, and you that shit comes right out. You know, like all their books do similar things, even though they're radically different from each other, and they're great books. I've read a ton of really cool horror novels. You know, but they all kind of start, you know, sharing a lot of the same ideas. Like this person went to school to learn how to do this. It's that kind of thing. They're not formulaic. It's just there becomes this kind of like conventional wisdom. Like you got to have 3 acts, and you've got to have a climactic this and that. And you've got to, and people do that stuff now without even thinking about it. You know, because there's just this assumption that you have to do that. You know, like when you go to tell somebody a story about something that happened to you, you don't just tell them like the first part and then you're done. You know, you've got to like try to follow some kind of narrative thread, and so that's what happens. So the same thing happens with film. You know, filmmakers are all informed by each other, and it's impossible to do anything completely original. And when you think about it like that, what he did is very unique. I mean, nobody's really made a film quite like that. And it took a lot of balls to make that, a lot of Kyle Edward balls to make that movie.
He did say that he was strongly influenced by the 1967 avant-garde film Wavelength, which I haven't seen and could not speak to, but I have seen a lot of people online making comparisons to it.
67? I don't know if I know what that is.
I don't know what it is, but it was funny. You talked about like them talking about like ripping off that shot from Lake Mungo. Mm-hmm. He has come forward and saying like one of his biggest influences was Black Christmas, and whenever he like lost the thread of how to do a panning shot, like he felt like it wasn't right, he would go back and watch the scenes that he liked in Black Christmas and be like, okay, he did it this way, and then he would go back and try to do it the same way that they did it in Black Christmas. So I thought that was really cool. Like I was like, oh fuck yeah, dude, that's awesome.
That is cool. Oh yeah. I'm not familiar with Wavelength at all. And when I look at the images, I did like a Google search. The images are just endless pictures of windows. Looks interesting. I could see the influence, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure none of those windows disappear at any point.
And now I have to watch Wavelength.
Yes. And he said among his other influences were, of course, David Lynch. You can definitely see that in here. It has a strong similarity to his web series Rabbits, which we mentioned also in our episode about Possession. Like, I could definitely see the influence there. This has a lot of that to it.
Yeah, which and again, to his credit, it doesn't come off as like some sort of cheap attempt to be arty. It's at least not to me. I think he totally pulls off what he's trying to do, and I mean, I'm glad. You know, I'm glad that there's people like him out there, you know, doing this kind of shit instead of, you know, just clinging to convention, because it's a lot of times it's just easier to do that. You know, people are going to connect with it. They already are familiar, so they've got that. It's built in. You know, and then this guy comes along and just completely subverts that, and, you know, just says fuck it and subvert, and it turns out to, you know, I'm sure everybody's shocked that it's a raging hit.
Yeah. It is really cool that stuff like this is making it to theaters and making it to like a little bit of mainstream success. I guess we should talk about the story of this movie and how it was a hit at the film festivals, and then one of their like servers got hacked and all of the movies got leaked on the internet, and then this became a huge pirated hit, where like everyone was watching it on like the Pirate Bay and stuff like that, to the point that he was like, oh shit, my movie deal is going to fall apart because no one's going to want to watch this. They've already seen it. And like, if you go to like the horror subreddit at that time, like everyone was fucking watching it, and everyone was either like, I love this movie or I don't love this movie, but they were all saying, I've already watched this movie, and none of that was going to reward like to reimburse his $15,000 budget. But Shudder stuck by him. They're like, no, this is fine. We're gonna stick with our contract, and then it made like $1 million at the box office, and it's been a hit on their streaming platform. And so I'm glad that Kyle got a little bit of a reward for that, and I'm really glad that this is a possible path for filmmakers, like to do these little experimental things and build up a grassroots following that does allow, like you were talking about, not just following the same formula every fucking time, of getting really new, experimental and artistic horror that isn't like anything that we're used to, that like not like anything else that's coming out. It's really fucking cool, and I'm glad that this is a hit. I cringe at all of the copy pasta that's gonna come after this, because it's just going to be bad, kind of like how as soon as Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey was announced and the first concept arts came out, then everyone was like, all right, well, we're gonna do a Grinch one, and we're gonna do a Bambi one, and stuff like that. So there's gonna be a lot more like this that's not gonna be very good, but that's fine, because you to make art means to make a bunch of shitty copies of art too.
Yeah, I mean, when you create something, and you create something and then you put it out there, and then it just belongs to the world. Like it sinks or swims or grows or whatever the fuck happens to it. You don't have really any control over it. And I mean, he could have made any film he wanted, and he made this, which is really cool. And it's. Yeah, I mean, I still look forward to, what is going to happen with horror, because it's kind of changing before our eyes. And, like I've talked a million times about how, I was like starving for movies like Hereditary and Midsummer and the Vavitch and all that shit to come out, because there wasn't anything like that really at the time. And then all of a sudden all those movies came out, and then I think we've done that. It's time for to explore, to expand even further. And now they're mainstream horror is embracing something like Skinamarink, and the truth of the matter is that audiences are a lot more savvy than maybe they were several decades ago, because film's been around longer. They have a lot more of there's this large body of work that they can revert back to, and it makes something like this maybe not quite so alien to people who aren't just movie fanatics. And
yeah,
I think that's the reason why it's not just getting completely panned across the board by audiences. This is obviously the kind of film that a critic would like, but I would have guessed that this would be the kind of film that audiences would have just been like, fucking thumbs down, my man.
Yeah.
But people seem to like it, So, I mean, that's encouraging that, there's some segment of the populace out there that's intelligent enough to give a movie like this a fucking shot.
Yeah. And it rewards it. It's super worth it.
Yeah. I'm glad we covered it. I got a little worried when I started taking my notes, because I was just like, yeah, you can't really. I'm always pretty confident that we'll summarize stuff and make it entertaining, and I think we did. But I was a little worried about it there.
So audience, this was my pick. I picked it because of the hype around it. Like I picked it before I had seen it, and I was like, yeah, let's do that. And then after I watched it, I was like, I have made a horrible mistake.
Is it too late to change?
Yeah, like this is exactly the reason why we didn't cover Mad God. It's because like how do you summarize that movie and talk about it?
Yeah, that would have been even harder. Jesus.
Yes, but also, John, you recommended to me. You shared a link to Skinamarink Do Part 2.
Yes.
Have you watched it?
I watched some of it. It's ridiculous that I sent you the link and didn't even finish it myself. But I saw some of it, and it was so much like the original that I just was like, I'll watch it later, and then I forgot to watch it later.
It's super worth it. It's great.
Oh, cool.
It's by Rene Rivas Productions, and it's a very loving parody of this movie.
Nice.
But instead of the things that are in here, there's an Elmo doll that talks and a Cookie Monster, and at a certain point, it kind of feels like maybe Cookie Monster is killing things. At one point, we see the Elmo doll is like ripped in half, and there's like blood and guts pouring out of both halves of it.
Nice.
And then a big fat guy sits on a toilet and wipes his ass with a Barbie doll, and then we see the Barbie doll head get flushed down the toilet.
Nice.
Yeah. It's really good, and a lot of it is, it's a parody of this movie, so a lot of it's playing with it. There's a unicorn nightlight where every time you see that unicorn nightlight, it's like, oh, and all of the sound effects are a little bit more comical and familiar, and yeah, it's definitely worth it. Go out there and find Skinamarink Do Part 2, and after you watch this movie, and have a fun little chuckle at it.
And it didn't take them long to throw that together too. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, apparently he, went and saw it at a film festival, and he was like, ooh, I'm gonna go do a thing.
Oh, yeah, one more thing that I have to say about this movie. It probably has one of the best trailers I've ever seen, because it makes this movie seem like it's gonna fucking just destroy you. That whole, in this house. In this house. It's such a great trailer, and then I started reading about it, and I'm like, wow, this movie is great. I love the title. I love the idea. The trailer was cool. And then I watched it. I was like, wow, this movie's awesome.
Yeah. And also, one of the things that freaked me out, the thing I identified most with this movie, as far as, the dream part of it, is the public domain cartoons, like especially the one Somewhere in Dreamland. Mm-hmm. I've seen that cartoon, but I have no recollection of seeing that cartoon. I have no idea when I saw it, where it was, why it was in front of me, but I must have been very small, because it had that very weird pulling something up out of the depths of me that I could recall all of this, and it was like, wow, this is crazy. And it just makes me wonder, is that was there a toddler training tape that they made every toddler watch, where it had that and some other of those old out of copyright cartoons? It really, that was the most like a dream that I was familiar with part of this movie, was seeing those scenes that I somehow remembered play out in front of me.
He uses those kind of elements really well. I mean, as well as you could possibly use them, really. They're suitably creepy and just kind of take you out. I know it's set in the 90s, but it just has that it's not now feel to it, and that, carries through. Because, I mean, there's still people with fucking rotary phones in their house, and, they live in old houses that look exactly like that one, because someone actually lives in that fucking house. And they still use their VHS. And, yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
They still, people still use VHS sometimes and stuff, so it could have been now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that wall, that one wall in the house with it's the chevron pattern wood tiling or whatever you want to call it. I was like, wow, yeah, I've definitely been in houses with that wall before.
I know, it's crazy that thing made it from wherever it is we live all the way down to Canada.
Yeah, over to Edmonton.
If you go south from us, wait, I'm an idiot.
Just take a left at Sorry, and you'll get there quick as you like.
Take a left at Sorry. There goes all our Canadian fans.
Yeah, we do have some. We've got some in Ontario, a few in Saskatchewan. I don't know the different accents. I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't either. I saw that we charted somewhere in movie review podcasts in some place weird like Indonesia or something like that.
Nice. I guess they don't have a lot of movie podcasts.
Wouldn't that be great if we became we became huge stars in some weird place like not those places aren't weird, but I mean weird that we would be even listened to at all there.
That would be awesome. Like what is it, Sugarman or whatever, that didn't realize that he had a huge following in like what like South Africa or something like that.
Wasn't it in Brazil?
Yeah, Brazil. France.
Egypt.
Yeah, it'd be really cool. Plus, a lot of those like little those one-off countries in Southeast Asia where it's like, oh yeah, it's a cool little island, but there's a billion people in it. Like, it'd be cool if they were like all listening to Loathsome Things. Meanwhile, we have like 2 listeners in Kentucky, 2 listeners in Texas, and 1 in California.
And as typical Americans, we have the balls to make fun of other entire countries.
Oh my god, yeah. Just whole regions of like of the world.
It's like, what is wrong with these fucking people? Why would they listen to us? It's so stupid.
Like, wow, these guys really get it. They must live in great places. So John, out of on a scale of 0 to 5, Loathsome Things, how would you rate this movie on that scale based on your experience of watching it and in comparison to the other horror movies that we have watched together separately talked about?
I gave this movie 3.25.
3.25?
I liked it a lot. It wasn't perfect, but it did a lot of. It was very original, and it was a welcomed addition to 2023 horror. It's going to be interesting to see where it goes this year, because I know that there's some stuff that looks really cool. That found footage movie that people are talking about. Apparently, it's really good. So I'm tentatively hopeful for that. But yeah, I gave it a 3.25. It's a lot of fun. Like I said, I spent a lot of time talking shit about it, but that's kind of what I do, It's anyone if anyone's listening, they know we're idiots, so it's not any big deal.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, but this movie is definitely an achievement, and I'm really glad that he made it. So, how about you?
Yeah. To give a number to it, I gave it a 3.5. It's got like a lot of artistic integrity to it. It does a lot of cool things, but I mean, very honestly, this movie shouldn't be ranked alongside the other movies that we've watched, because it's not it's not a movie as much as it is an art film. Like it's like, yeah, it's not the same kind of thing. So like giving it a 3.5 or like together, that would be a 6.75. Yeah. That's not like putting it in other, like comparing that with other movies with a similar score isn't really going to tell you anything about this. So it's not really a fair ranking. It's not fair to score it that way. It's its own kind of thing. It's not really inside the wheelhouse of what we typically do, but there it is.
And I think that we try to be as objective as possible about our personal ratings, so that it's like whatever rating we come up for these movies is just based entirely on whatever criteria we're using to consider. Was it good? Is it worth watching? Is it scary? Is it this? Is it that? And so you can kind of get an idea for like the range. I mean, if something's just abysmal, we're going to be somewhere down below 2, and that's actually fairly rare. and it's held for like movies that are just insultingly bad. When you start getting around the threes, it's a 3 would be perfectly average out of 5, but this movie's better than perfectly average. But I'm not giving it a 4 or anything like that. It's not. That's approaching greatness.
Yeah. So to give you an idea, I looked it up, and it's a little bit comical where it landed. So let's see. Let me pull this up. 6.75. So at 6.5 we have Spider Baby.
Wow.
At 6.66 we have Basket Case 2.
6.66.
And then the two directly above this movie at 6.8, The Curse of Frankenstein, and at 6.8, Blood Diner. So this movie is sandwiched in between Spider Baby and Basket Case 2 below it, and The Curse of Frankenstein and Blood Diner above it. That does not tell you anything about this movie.
It tells you out of 45 movies, we liked it.
Yeah,
it held its own
it
against the bulk of movies that we enjoy.
Yeah,
which is
fantastic.
I think is fair. I mean, it has a lot of things going for it that maybe none of the movies that we covered have, but it also has some issues that keep me from wanting to declare it great. And I don't think it's going to age necessarily and be seen as great, but it could. I don't know. It could be. Yeah. It could end up being a classic. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, I mean it's achieved some notoriety. I don't know where it'll get, where it'll be on like people's memory box like 5 years from now. But it's at least there will always be people that remember this movie, for the next like 10 or 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Woo. Yeah, there's weird animal noises in there at one point. It's like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, there's some weird vocal effects, and I think it's really funny. Yeah, I think didn't he overdub all the voices? So, they were just because he wanted them to sound disembodied and alien, I guess. Which mission accomplished.
Also, the sound guy died before they mixed the movie.
That's who that person was, John something or other.
Yeah, and all of the sound was like on his laptop, like all of the audio files were on his laptop, and so Kyle was like, "Well, I'm sad that my friend is dead, but can I get his laptop?"
Yeah, I know. Wow.
That's super fucked up.
It's like, hey, I just wanted to say I'm really sorry about the loss of your whatever he is to you, and I just wanted to let you know that in honor of the work that he did with us, we're naming, we're going to, credit him. It's going to be made in his honor. Also, is his laptop around anywhere?
So I know he just died and everything, and not for any selfish reasons, like I don't personally want his laptop, but before he died, he did ask that in the event of his death, I erase his browser history. So would it be okay if I just took this with me?
Oh my god. Yeah, making fun of dead people.
Some dead guy I never met.
Okay.
John, is there anything else we need to go over before we let these people move on to whatever other podcast they're going to listen to today?
No, I can't think of anything that's worth a shit.
Okay. Well, go out there, watch other horror movies, have dreams, tell us about your dreams, and try not to interpret them too hard.
Correct. And as always, we're sorry that you all are going to die. What? Huh? Oh.
Take your headphones off.
Oh. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that one in there.
Nice.
Just at the end, so people won't quit listening to us before.
Just put just intersperse, like just put it in random places throughout the episode.
Like some kind of purple cape.
Yeah. Nice.
All right, so stop recording.
Oh yeah, that.